The Sonic OVA, or as it's known around these parts, the Sonic Movie, is strange, but if I've learned anything about Sonic, it's that kind of series. And I seem to have an unapologetic love for the whole franchise, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Do I even like most Sonic games? I'm not even sure. They make me very mad, but I always seem to come back to them. A lot of this modern Sonic is jank as hell, but there's a charm to it. And not to mention, Sonic Robo Crash 2 Kart is my favourite kart racer ever, no contest. Yet as a series, there is a transformative cultural energy to it. It's unmatched in its lunacy and creativity from its passionate and fascinating fan base, who are sometimes more intriguing than the games themselves. They're not afraid to put themselves out there and create all manner of art. I mean, they have expos dedicated to this, and it spreads all over the internet. And you can't say it's not a thriving community, and one that Sega has embraced with open arms. Worried Nintendo will DCM your fan game? Well, why don't you just put Sonic in instead? Because, hey, you never know, they may even hire you. So with the continued radio silence from my favourite Sonic channel, Cybershell, rest in peace, here's me trying to do this one justice. Is the Sonic OVA hilarious, redundant fodder for children? No and yes. It was actually created by a relatively unknown director, E.K. Gami, and this appeared during the community drought for Sonic, the Sonic drought as it's known. A generation without a core Sonic game, but not without trying. Those don't count though. This OVA was likely in association with Project Sonic, an effort to bring awareness to the brand in Japan. Sonic was much bigger overseas. There were many Sonic properties brought to the Saturn, since the console was doing well in Japan, unlike other places. So in the 90s, Sega thinks, let's make an OVA. And where's the first place that we hear about that OVA? On Sonic Jam on the Sega Saturn. So Sega's working with Studio Pierrot to animate it, and this studio is the one that popularized OVAs to begin with, so it's a good place to start. And in the future, they do a lot of impressive work. This was during quite a big time for the little blue hedgehog. There were plans for a movie coming out, this new game called Sonic Extreme might be coming out next year, though most of that didn't happen. Although, as we've seen, no one forgot Sonic anytime soon.
Instantly iconic looking. Sonic, I guess, was the anti-Mario. That was always the idea.
Yeah, and if you look at like the first Japanese ads, well, the first one's in claymation, which is quite different than you expect.
Which genuinely surprised me looking at that. I didn't think that they would go with a claymation animation for Sonic.
Yeah, he's such a flat character in aspect, but I suppose they just wanted to stand out. Instantly, you get his personality from the ad.
He's doing like the dancing, like kind of Michael Jackson inspired look to him, like in the way he's moving.
Yeah, the way he's moving and dancing.
He's got that attitude, which is like the biggest part of when you're looking at classic Sonic. The big persevering part of his character is he's got that 90s rad tude to him.
And like he's doing the air guitar on the way out. So they have that down, and that's like a starting point. We've established this character. I mean, the second animation, it's more about impressive. So like in Sonic 2.
It's almost like a showcase of like how over the top the stages are, because they're showing the loop.
So these two ads, they're sort of establishing the games and they're establishing the character and his entourage. It seems to be really when Japan starts establishing what they want like a Sonic CD.
That opening animation, or both of the animations, I think did more for establishing Sonic's character than anything that the States were doing at the time.
Oh yeah,
you had the two TV series, and they basically have just been completely discarded.
It's probably because they had nothing to do with them, because they have completely different stories and I don't think they took too much from the Sonic Jam animation. It does show like little nods that the Japanese, at least, they recognise some of the American cartoons' contributions. Like they use the opening music, but for the most part, the imposter Sonic once again. Time.
Yuji Naka, imposter Sonic, because if we were to list down, it's you got Metal Sonic. I mean, there's also like the other version of Metal Sonic and Sonic 2. You've got this imposter Eggman thing going on. You've got Shadow the Hedgehog, and then you've also got Silver as well. There is a real popularity to character that was very similar to Sonic that is going to be his rival.
the Venom paradigm, right?
For sure.
You need an opposite. You need a dark mirror of your protagonist.
When's there going to be a Sonic symbiote storyline?
There probably already has been one. But you get from the CD, like, first you get some crazy music, you get some crazy animation.
I'll correct you. The best music.
Yes.
And the best animation.
If we're talking about Sonic Boom, then yes.
If you don't like Sonic Boom or just Sonic CD soundtrack in general, there's something wrong with you.
It's great, and obviously OVA uses that as its foundation because the music at times is very reminiscent of the CD, and the attitude is there. Like, you really have a key attitude to Sonic. You get the idea that he's sort of playful and cocky.
There's like a confidence in the way he's moving or standing in areas, and in the ending animation where it shows a bit more of him interacting with enemies. Again, the playfulness.
The idea with Sonic a lot of the time seems to be that he's having a good time or saving the world, because that's how cool he is.
Yeah.
This is all a game to him.
It's interesting how many different elements of the CD animation then make it into the OVA.
Oh, definitely.
The way that Sonic does his spin dashes, the jumping between like sections, or even the cliff run, they all show up in the animation.
Both of them are trying to say, like, this is an animation of the game. Now, one of the first things I noticed in the opening is that the screenwriter, who was an animator as well, uses a lot of visual storytelling, leaving it up to the animators and the audio to sort of get the important details down, especially in any of the introductions. The music might be some of the best, and it's a crime it never got a physical release. If you look at For the Land of the Sky, its horns drive the melody next to the screeching synths with layers of drums. It's a spin ball of orchestration. Adventure awaits in the far-off lands. The horns and the synth line merge to bring the whole band together in a larger-than-life opening. And that's just the beginning. Lookalike gets back to those CD days. The 90s flows through this one, and I can tell you that, in style, it's a jam. With Ryo Kononaka's nonsensical lyrics step all over the staggering harp, and it's catchy to a fault even if it doesn't make any sense. A thumping beat battles those strings of guitars, simmering synth lines scream that this is Sonic's time. The echoing guitar next to the otherworldly sound, it's a triumphant one in structure. Then there's the actual themes for characters. Sonic's theme has a fast drum and bass style, but with a grungy tone. He really is the symbol of the decade here with his radical essence. In contrast, Tails' theme brings a twinkling synth arpeggio with a techno bass, which speaks to the mechanic in himself. Speaking of which, when we talk about characters here, Sonic as a character, he's pretty well defined here. They really understand where the bass began, and they're adding on top of it. He's less memey than his American counterpart. He's sort of too cool, that's his game, but he's not. It's sort of a state of mind, an act he puts on. He's a jerk with a heart of gold, you could say. The veneer breaks down from time to time, and is not always willing to help out when he would rather be chilling. There's an element of selfishness there. But when people are really in need, you see him in a flash. Then we got his little brother, Tails. They squabble and fight, but there's something there. They help each other out of fixes, and you can see why Sonic needs friends in this adaptation. But Tails can be cowardly for sure, and he's still young, but he's brave, and he's got that ingenuity. The earnestness of him sort of brings the best out in Sonic, and when they're fighting together, there is an endearing form of camaraderie. This is Knuckles, and I'm back. Then, of course, we got my main man, Knuckles, who moved away from his position in the franchise.
Like, Knuckles kind of just becomes guy that sits on an island again after this movie.
Yeah, I think they changed Knuckles because they didn't want to have to deal with that from a writing perspective.
Yeah.
Because if he's just on an island, unless you come to the island, you're never going to meet Knuckles.
I wish they'd stuck with that as an idea, though. I like more the idea of Knuckles being some...
like a treasure hunter.
Yeah, like some treasure hunter, a globe-trotting adventurer, than just some dork that sits on an island and waits for his magic crystal to break every week.
Or Robotnik just to come and steal it.
Yeah.
I like his hat.
Knuckles with a hat is kind of... Do you feel like that maybe was an attempt to... Because Knuckles, especially earlier on, was compared a lot visually to Sonic, being kind of similar looking. Do you think the hat was like an attempt to try and make him stand out a little bit more as his own guy? Like,
yeah, it might be. I always assumed it had something to do with like that. Well, he's a globetrotter. He's a bit like Indiana Jones, maybe like a Crocodile Dundee. He's Australian because he's an echidna. Let's give him something like that on the hat.
Yeah, it gives the impression of a traveller. That was something you noted as well with the narrative, that all the characters have a part to play. It's not just Sonic wins. Sonic gets all the Chaos Emeralds and wins.
Yeah, I think that's a dynamic I like about it, is that it's a play with characters. Like, I mean, you could say it in the same way like the Avengers. The characters need to come together to form a team that wins. And like seeing those characters bounce off each other and react is why you'd want to watch it. And I'd rather see a Sonic show where it is like all of them working together, because having Sonic just sort of run off on his own is kind of boring.
I like as well that they do a good job in the movie of like establishing the trio. Like Sonic, Tails and Knuckles as a trio will kind of have very established personalities from there. You kind of have a better understanding of who these three people are. That
if you're following Sonic, Tails and Knuckles, it shouldn't really matter what's happening. It's more that they get out of the events. Watching them team up is the best part of the story, and it's used as the finale of the first episode. Even if Eggman's plot is sort of nonsensical and not deep and all that other stuff you could complain about, but that's not why we watch Sonic. It may be a simple characterization for sure, but it's a fundamental thing that keeps the franchise together, design or otherwise. And while the design of this animation may be limited, sometimes off-model, Tails never looks quite right to me. It has its impressive moments, even if some elements don't quite feel, connected. But that's just a sign of the times, I guess. You never know with that sort of side of Japan.
It just seems like this is another idea that's been revisited before, because the original Sonic, you had the Madonna was like an idea they wanted to try and use a human girlfriend for Sonic, and then I guess they were like,
eventually did it in 06.
That's a bit weird.
But when the emotions need to be big, it's there. And we can all agree Eggman in this version is perfect, right? In both design and attitude, he captures a brilliant scientist with that Frankenstein angle, but there's also a lovable loser who's a complete pushover there too. Almost like in Sonic Boom, which I'm sure they sort of brought that dynamic of the character back decades later, and I think we can all see I'm a fan. When you look at the backgrounds, it's good to know that they were sourced from Studio Uni, who also worked on Akira. They have a level of care, and it feels like a living world. This is probably the first time we've seen a big budget version of Sonic's world that spans this far. South Island, for one, is this creative playground of abandoned tech. They use it to build a house together, which also alludes to Tails' mechanical skills. They build on it the idea of harmony within the island, which goes with the nature versus technology concept of the whole series. In contrast, Eggman Land is sort of a monstrous neon amusement park, a big looming face unsettled in the abandoned dystopia. It's called the Land of the Darkness for a reason, right? The track isn't all doom and gloom either, it's reminiscent of those seedy Bad Future singles. It has a jovial energy, but next to something dire in the wings. Something's about to happen. It could be the closest thing we get to a stage song, and it's used within the animation to give that feeling. Sonic battles through locations, like in a globe-trotting adventure. It feels like the games, and it moves towards those 2D beatdowns of badniks. And for all I know, those warp zones could be like special stages or something. But the main appeal of the OVA seems to be Hyper Metal Sonic. For an evil robot Sonic, they give him a lot more personality and pathos than expected, from what his game appearances alluded to. Obviously, the OVA builds on top.
Yeah, Metal Sonic's a lot more menacing in the OVA, I guess because he's got more screen time. But even in like shots where I guess nothing is said, Metal Sonic is like at his most menacing visually. Whereas in that tiny little OVA, it's more just, oh, look how cool it is that he's running with Metal Sonic.
But if anything, Sonic OVA probably brings a lot of the fandom to, I guess, Metal Sonic.
For sure. I mean, I was saying it when we were watching the video, Metal Sonic's probably my favourite, like, antagonist to Sonic, other than Eggman. But, like, Metal Sonic's probably my favourite of the, like, other villainous, like, characters, just because a lot of it is to do with I watched the OVA when I was quite young, which is funny, because I think I actually saw Shadow before I saw Metal Sonic, but I found Metal Sonic more interesting than Shadow, which they do a lot more showing with Metal Sonic. When you first see him properly, like, he's just floating in that dark room.
Yeah, he's
with
very
the glowing.
ambient.
Yeah, like he just looks, in a way, he looks very scary at points.
Very intimidating.
There's a big emphasis on the eyes with him, or the little red aura at times that surrounds him, or some of his movements are like, they had a lot of fun messing around with a robot version of our protagonist, because there's a little leg kick.
Just whaps him. It's definitely an animator's film. He's grandiose and he's got that new jack swing style of music. It's a lost sound, but it reminds me of something. A jam. Oh God, no. Michael, I'm sorry. Don't strike me down too. We've already lost Sonic and Knuckles. Please, don't. But like Frankenstein's monster, he may be stuck under the thumb of those who are manipulating him. Maybe he's not so bad after all. After all, he dressed up Sonic's buddy in his favorite clothes. Can't be that bad, right? I mean, right? Outside of, trying to destroy the world? Can't say I've ever seen Sonic wear clothes before. This is a new element for sure. Metal sacrifices himself to save others. While he perishes in the lava-filled hellscape, he dies to let Sonic live, admitting there can only be one. There are sad strings and an angelic choir. The fate was not on his side here. Maybe this isn't his real end, but we never got to see more of the OVAs, so guess we'll never find out, which is a shame.
There is only one Sonic.
You can see that they are taking ideas, especially from Sonic CD and other games, and they're sort of expanding it to be like, this is what a Sonic world would look like. Even if it isn't the canon one that we know, a lot of these events and places become used in the later games.
Yeah, I always feel like if you look at the history of Sonic, if you were then to see the OVA in between the period of Sonic on the Mega Drive to Sonic on a Dreamcast, you'd be a bit more like, oh, okay, that's why he's in some weird real people city and in adventure and stuff. Because they've already kind of had this idea in the OVA of like Sonic and people being a thing.
It's almost like that, the in-between point between those two franchises. That's what makes OVA like it is a fundamental pillar between the old universe and the new one that we know. I mean, would you recommend Sonic OVA?
Absolutely. With the English dub. Because the English dub is so surreal.
Shut up, Tails! Who are you? I'm Knuckles. I'm Sonic's best friend. You might know everything I'm going to do, but that's not going to help you since I know everything you're going to do. Strange, isn't it?
This is the way I'd like to look at it now, I'm hoping, is that if you want to take it like seriously as a thing just to watch, I'd say the sub's a better thing to watch. Because the dub is inconceivable.
Yeah, it's just bizarre.
And the dub's really funny, but considering now they're making that Sonic rebuild, I'm hoping they're going to be using the dub in the rebuild and sort of bringing it to like new levels of height. So you don't really have to choose between two different versions. You can either watch one or the other, one will like amplify the meme energy into something that's completely wholly itself.
Yeah, I guess. It feels like the OVA is almost like the groundwork for everything that the series then went on to do in the future. For better or for worse.
Yeah, you'll actually notice later on, a lot of the OVA stuff is used again by the fans who started to create this new generation of Sonic right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like Tyson Hess, he's definitely taking a lot from like ideas from the Sonic OVA.
There's like fan projects as well that are clearly inspired by it, like Freedom Planet.
Yeah, Freedom Planet, definitely.
The game is called Freedom Planet, which is the
name of the
setting
planet.
of the OVA, which I guess if you haven't seen the OVA, you wouldn't notice that.
Yeah, I guess it's more of like an Easter egg. Even in stuff like I think about a year or two ago, OK-KO, they did this short where Sonic happened to be in the show.
It was great.
And it's basically just a 10-minute condensement of this film. They bring in Metal Sonic, they have all the little pieces and bits with the funny, crazy animations, and they have the classic scene at the end of the slap where he knocks his hand away to save Sonic.
That's a good point.
So, like, this has obviously left an impact on a generation of fans.
Yeah, there are definitely people that, like... I think when it comes to the Sonic fan base, it's so big and varied that there's going to be a sub-community of people that die hard for, like, a certain thing.
And even some of this stuff may have affected creators who made, like, the comic books. Some of those ideas do come back. In fact, I think Sarah, the cowgirl, she actually makes an Easter egg.
She makes an Easter egg appearance in the Archie comic.
Yeah. Because Sega doesn't really talk about it anymore, and obviously it's not really canon, and it's sort of been faded away. Like, even though you're probably not going to see a new release ever, because the rights sort of died with that ADV dub company, and I don't know if anyone's ever going to pick it up again, or if they even would want to. It's a bit off-brand now. It is very much like a time capsule for like that 90s with the music and the style of animation, and being an OVA, which isn't really a thing that happens now.
I don't know if necessarily it's one of these things where only really the 20-something-year-olds that played old Sonic or watched the older stuff are going to appreciate it.
Well, here's my confession right here, right? The first time I watched this in full was like a month ago.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so funny, because my first time watching this, I vaguely remember, was watching it with Isaac. We were on like a computer, when we were like 9 or something.
So yeah, I'd seen clips because I knew about like some of the weird elements of it from at least 10 years back. I'm sure I'd seen some of the funnier clips, but I'd never watched the whole thing. I just knew of it as a thing that exists. Anyway, join me next time where we're going to talk about Sonic's old rival and the man behind his iconic visual style. And thanks to Fox for being in this video. We've actually worked together a lot in the past on his own channel, so if you want to subscribe there for video game content, feel free. I will be there again in the future, I'm sure. Oh yeah, and thanks to my patrons, especially Jovin and everyone else that makes this possible for watching these little videos I make on the side. I'm glad that you are enjoying them.